The rain came down like glass beads, smashing on concrete, relentless and sharp, drenching the streets of Chicago's South Loop. Midnight clung to the city, like a second skin, wrapping everything in silence and steam. Inside Maribel's cafe, a narrow-cornered diner known only to locals and night shift ghosts, Naomi Harris stood behind the counter, wiping it down for the third time. Her shoulders ached, her black curls tied into a frizzy bun that had lost shape hours ago. She had been working since noon, 12 hours, 2 short breaks, and a whole lot of burnt coffee and weary smiles. Naomi had no room for pride. Just bills, rent, and an aging mother whose medication cost more than their groceries. She reached for the lights, ready to close, when something stopped her. A flicker of movement through the window. Small, still. She leaned closer. There, on the sidewalk just beyond the diner's neon sign, was a child. A girl. She sat in a battered wheelchair, soaked to the bone. Her coat looked 2 sizes too big, sleeves dragging over frail hands that clutched a soaked blanket. Her black sneakers were muddy and frayed. Her dark hair stuck to her pale forehead in wet strands. But it was her stillness that caught. Naomi's breath, the kind of stillness that said, "I've been here too long. I'm too tired to move." Naomi dropped the dish rag. Pushing open the door, she stepped out into the icy downpour, the wind slicing through her thin uniform. She crouched beside the girl. "Sweetheart," she said gently, her voice barely louder than the rain. "What are you doing out here?" The girl didn't look up right away. When she did, her eyes were startling, green, vivid against her soaked skin, and filled with something far older than her years. "I'm waiting," she whispered. "For my father." Naomi looked up and down the empty street. No cars, no figures. Just wet asphalt and flickering street lamps. In the rain! At this hour? Naomi's heart twisted. "Does he know you're here?" The girl shook her head. Naomi exhaled slowly. "Okay, no more waiting out here. Come on, you're coming inside with me." The girl hesitated, her hand gripping the side of her wheelchair. But she didn't resist. Naomi wheeled her through the door, the bell jingling softly overhead, warmth and light wrapped around them like a blanket. Inside, she helped the girl out of her drenched coat and placed a towel over her shoulders. Then she crouched to meet her eyes. "I'm Naomi," she said, smiling softly. "What's your name, sweet girl?" The girl hesitated again. Then, "Isla." Naomi nodded. "Beautiful name." "You hungry?" Isla gave the smallest nod. Naomi didn't wait. She moved toward the kitchen, pulled 2 slices of sourdough, and fired up the griddle. She added tomato soup to a pot. The smell of melting cheese and garlic soon filled the space. When she returned, she placed the plate in front of Isla, a golden grilled cheese and a warm bowl of soup. Isla blinked at it, then took a bite, and her whole face changed. Her cheeks flushed, her shoulders relaxed. A small, real smile tugged at her lips. "This is," she mumbled, "amazing." Naomi chuckled, sliding into the booth across from her. "My grandma's recipe. Works every time." She watched the girl eat, her hunger quiet but desperate. Naomi didn't ask more, not yet. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that across the street, from the top floor of an executive condo tower, Victor Ellison was watching, tall, cold, calculating. He stood behind a pane of reinforced glass, arms crossed, suit still pristine despite the hour. A surveillance drone hovered quietly beside him, its lens blinking red as it zoomed in on the cafe window. His daughter had run, again, but this time she had landed in the arms of a woman he didn't recognize. Naomi Harris. The drone fed data into his tablet. Facial recognition, background checks, Dex returns. Nothing remarkable, which made her dangerous. Victor turned to his assistant, standing behind him in black tactical gear, and said one sentence. "Bring her in." Naomi didn't know how long they sat there, just her and Isla, with the hum of the diner lights and the occasional rumble of thunder outside. The girl had finished her sandwich and soup, and now sat nursing a warm cup of milk Naomi had frothed up like a cafe latte, topped with cinnamon. "You live nearby?" Naomi asked gently, watching Isla cradle the mug with both hands. Isla shook her head. "I don't live anywhere right now." Naomi felt that in her bones. Before she could ask more, the bell above the door jingled again. A man walked in, but not just any man. Tall, impeccably dressed in an obsidian black trench coat, every movement calculated like a chess master who always knew the end game. His shoes, polished Italian leather. His expression, blank, except for his eyes. Those ice-gray eyes locked directly onto Naomi. She instinctively stepped in front of Isla. "Sorry, kitchen's closed," Naomi said flatly. The man didn't even blink. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small, leather-bound card. He placed it on the counter with a kind of reverence, like it carried more weight than it should. Naomi picked it up. The letters gleamed in gold foil. Victor Ellison, Chairman and CEO, Ellison Media Group. Her fingers froze. "You're her father," Naomi whispered. Victor gave the faintest nod. "Yes." "She said she was waiting for you," Naomi said, voice harder now. "She sat outside in the rain, shivering, alone." "I'm aware," he said. His voice was like steel wrapped in silk. "And you brought her inside. You fed her. You showed kindness where most would walk away." Naomi crossed her arms. "You say that like it's unusual." "It is," Victor said simply. There was no apology. No thank you. Only calculation. Naomi was starting to feel like she had stepped into something larger, something she hadn't agreed to. "You here to take her home?" she asked finally. Victor's jaw tightened slightly. "Not tonight." Isla looked up at him then, wide-eyed. "You said you'd come alone." Victor's gaze flicked towards the corner of the diner. Naomi followed his eyes. A man was seated in the last booth, wearing a brown delivery jacket, sipping coffee, but Naomi could tell by the stiffness in his shoulders and the glint of something beneath. His sleeve that he wasn't there for caffeine. Victor's version of alone was as manufactured as the rest of him. "You can stay with me, Isla," Naomi offered, turning back to the girl. "Just for tonight. I've got a couch, and my building's got heat." Victor didn't interrupt. He watched, calculated, measured. After a pause, he said quietly, "You live in Belmont Heights, corner of 47th and Sherwood, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. Naomi froze. "Excuse me? You work 16-hour days. You bring home less than minimum wage after taxes and bills. You have an ill mother who needs insulin twice a week. And you still gave my daughter soup and shelter." Naomi's pulse ticked in her neck. "That's supposed to impress me? Or scare me?" "Neither," Victor replied. "It's supposed to tell you that I've done my homework, because I have an offer for you." Naomi shook her head. "I don't want your money." "It's not money," he said. "It's opportunity." She blinked. Victor reached into his coat again. This time, he pulled out a dark gray envelope. Thick, sealed with a subtle silver. He slid it across the counter. Naomi didn't touch it. "What's this?" "An invitation. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Ellison Tower, downtown." "For what?" Victor turned. "A position. One you've already earned." Then he paused, looked at Isla, whose fingers were still wrapped around the warm mug. "My daughter ran for a reason," he said. "And she chose you for a reason. I'd like to find out why." And with that, he walked out, his shadow stretching long across the diner floor. Naomi stood there for a long moment, staring at the envelope. She had no idea that the moment she opened it, her life and Isla's would never be the same again. The Ellison Tower wasn't a building. It was a statement. 65 stories of obsidian glass and burnished steel, jutting into the Chicago skyline like a blade. Naomi stood outside its entrance at exactly 8:58 a.m., wearing her best thrift store blazer and borrowed heels, clutching the gray envelope in one hand and a single thought in her head. "Don't flinch." Security scanned her twice, took her ID, whispered into earpieces. Then finally, a tall woman with tightly braided hair and a face carved from stone approached. "You're Naomi Harris?" the woman asked. "That's me. Follow me. Mr. Ellison doesn't like waiting." The elevator ride was silent, oppressively so. When the doors finally opened on the 58th floor, Naomi stepped into a hallway so pristine it looked like no one had ever walked through it. Art lined the walls, real art, originals, the kind of paintings she'd only seen in textbooks. And at the end of the hall, a door stood slightly ajar. Victor Ellison was waiting. He stood by the window with his back to her, looking out over the city like he owned every inch of it. He probably did. "You came," he said without turning. "I don't scare easy," Naomi replied, stepping in. Now he turned. A faint trace of amusement touched his otherwise unreadable face. "Good. I prefer people who don't." She folded her arms. "You gonna tell me why I'm here, or should I guess?" Victor didn't waste time. He nodded to the tablet on the desk. Its screen displayed a wall of names, emails, spreadsheets. Documents Naomi didn't recognize, until she did. They were internal. Confidential Ellison Media Group reports. These are from our secure database, he said. 2 nights ago, someone tried to access them using a backdoor channel. That attempt failed. But the attempt matters. Naomi blinked. What's this got to do with me? Victor walked to his desk and picked up a second envelope. Black this time, heavier. Because Isla was the target, he said calmly. And you're the first person she trusted in months. Naomi felt the room tilt slightly. Wait, are you saying someone's trying to… what? Hurt her? Victor didn't answer. He handed her the black envelope. Inside was a contract, temporary security consultant, private, discreet, embedded. 6 figures, monthly private driver. Company resources, no title, no office, no trace. You want me to spy? She asked flatly. I want you to watch, Victor said. There's a leak inside this company. One that involves my daughter. One that involves someone close to me. My people can't see it. You might? Naomi stared at him. And why the hell would I help you? Because you already did, Victor replied. And because I think you know what it's like when power is used to silence the wrong voices. That hit a little too close. Naomi's jaw tightened. Can I still make coffee and sandwiches on the side? Victor smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't belong on a man like him. A flicker of something almost human. You can do whatever you like, Ms. Harris. Just keep Isla safe. And find me the traitor. Naomi looked down at the contract. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like the help. She felt like the wild card. By Monday morning, Naomi Harris had a new name badge. A corner desk that wasn't really hers. And a fabricated title, Consultant Internal Affairs. Nobody knew what it meant. Which was the point. The assistant who showed her around, a sleek woman named Callie with glassy eyes and a robotic smile, explained it with all the excitement of a robot giving a museum tour. You'll be shadowing different. Departments for efficiency assessment. You'll report directly to Mr. Ellison when required. Questions? Only one, Naomi said. How many of you hate that I'm here already? Callie blinked. Excuse me? Naomi smiled sweetly. Never mind. But the truth was obvious the moment Naomi stepped onto the main floor. Eyes followed her. Conversations dipped the second she got near. She was a stranger in enemy territory, and they knew it. Which meant Victor had been right about one thing. Someone had something to hide. She kept her head down for the first few days. Took notes. Smiled at people who didn't smile back. Read every document she was given twice and studied. Every name attached to every file Isla's name had ever appeared in. By day 4, she had a short list. Jonas Ritter, head of tech security. Too defensive. Valerie Quinn, CFO. Too perfect. Elias Chang, Victor's legal strategist. Too silent. And then there was the 4th name. One she hadn't expected. Nadia Ellison, Victor's younger sister. On Thursday morning, Naomi caught a glimpse of her outside the executive boardroom. Tall, blonde, tailored in ice blue silk like a weapon disguised as elegance. She stood in a tight circle with Elias and Valerie. Her voice too low to hear, but her eyes sharp, calculating, possessive. Naomi stayed just out of sight and watched. Not what they said, how they moved. And then, just before the meeting door closed, Nadia turned slightly and looked directly at Naomi. No surprise, no curiosity, just knowledge. She knew who Naomi was. Naomi stepped back instinctively, pressing into the wall. When the door clicked shut, her phone buzzed. Private message VE. Boardroom now, she groaned. Of course. Inside, the room was colder than usual. Victor stood at the far end, tablet in hand, looking every bit the corporate monarchy was. I take it you saw them, he said without looking up. Naomi nodded. Your sister doesn't blink. She never does. You think she's involved? Victor looked up at that. I don't think, not yet. That's why I need you watching. I can't move on suspicion. You can. Naomi sat down slowly. This goes deeper than one leak, doesn't it? Victor paused, then finally said, my daughter wasn't just running away. She was trying to protect something. Naomi stiffened. What? Victor's eyes darkened. Evidence, a file, something she saw on my system. She copied it. And where is it now? Victor's voice lowered. We don't know. And Isla doesn't remember. Naomi swallowed hard. You're saying, whatever's happening, your daughter might be the only one who can prove it. Victor didn't nod, didn't speak, just looked at Naomi like a man who had already calculated all possible outcomes. Then I hope, Naomi whispered, you brought me in soon enough. Victor didn't smile, didn't move. But something in his voice chilled the air. So do I. That night, Naomi found herself back in the quiet of her tiny apartment. Except it didn't feel quiet anymore. Not with the weight of Victor's words echoing in her head. She copied something. Isla doesn't remember. Naomi sat cross-legged on the floor. Isla curled up on the couch behind her, under a patchwork blanket. They'd fallen into a rhythm in recent days. Isla, trusting her more with each passing hour. But Naomi could see it in her eyes. That fog. That sense of something she knew but couldn't reach. Isla, she said softly. The girl stirred. Naomi shifted closer. Do you remember anything about the file you copied? Isla's brow furrowed. I didn't mean to. I was playing on Daddy's tablet. It was open. There were letters, numbers. Letters and numbers? Naomi asked, careful not to press too hard. Isla nodded slowly. It had a blue screen and a triangle in the corner. It made a sound, like the click. Then it just disappeared. Naomi's spine straightened. A triangle? That wasn't just some random program. That was a division logo, one she had seen once in the confidential employee archives. Project Wraith, a name no one ever said out loud. She stood up, heart pounding. She grabbed her laptop, logging into the secure Ellison intranet using the access Victor had given her. She ran a deep search through classified divisions. Nothing. She filtered by symbol, triangle, right-leaning blue gradient. One result. Division Wraith Protocol. Status inactive. Access level red tier only. Initiated by N. Ellison, Nadia. Of course, Naomi stared at the screen, a knot forming in her stomach. The date next to it was from 2 years ago, right around the time. Victor's wife had died in what the press called a freak car accident. Something was very wrong. And Isla had seen it. Naomi locked her screen and looked back at the girl on the couch, now fast asleep, her face peaceful under the flicker of a muted TV. The child didn't even know she was sitting on the edge of a war. The next morning, Naomi stepped into Victor's office with the file ID burned into her memory. You didn't tell me your sister started Project Wraith? Victor's expression didn't shift, but his jaw tensed. You found it. Naomi folded her arms. She made sure no one else could. What is it? Victor walked to the window, his hands behind his back. It was a contingency plan. A predictive algorithm that could anticipate media shifts before they occurred. Useful for stock markets, elections, public opinion. That's not illegal, Naomi said. No, Victor replied, until someone modified it to simulate emotional response. The program started creating feedback loops, feeding panic, rage, making people believe the world was burning when it wasn't. Naomi's blood ran cold. You're telling me someone used it to manipulate entire populations? Through your own media empire. Victor turned. Not me. No, Naomi said. Your sister. He didn't reply. Naomi moved closer. Isla saw the original logs. Didn't she? Victor finally nodded. She was playing on my tablet. I didn't know she'd opened anything. But somehow, she downloaded the raw data. And now that data is missing. Victor looked straight at her. That's why I brought you in. Because if my sister finds out what Isla has, she'll do anything to get it back. Naomi's breath hitched. How far would she go? Victor's face turned to stone. She already killed one person, he said. I don't think she'll stop at 2. Naomi didn't sleep that night. The truth had reshaped everything. A secret project that could control emotion through media. A child who had accidentally stolen its core files. And a woman, Nadia Ellison, who had allegedly killed to protect it. But outside, in the alley across from her apartment, Naomi spotted a figure. Still, watching. Too still to be random. She reached for her phone. Dialed fast. Victor answered on the second ring. Yes? She knows, Naomi whispered. Or she's getting close. A pause. Then, stay where you are. Sending security. Naomi's voice sharpened. No. If she knows where I live, I'm not putting Isla through that. Then bring her in, he said firmly. And don't trust anyone on the way. Not even our own. By morning, Naomi had Isla packed and in the back of a black company. SUV with private security. Detail, Victor's most trusted driver. A quiet ex-Marine named Tate who spoke in clipped phrases and checked his mirrors every 8 seconds. They drove in silence until Tate asked quietly, You armed? Naomi raised a brow. Should I be? He didn't answer. Just passed her a small black case from the glove compartment. Inside, a slim .38 revolver. Legal, registered, untouched. Never point unless you intend to pull. he said. Naomi stared at the weapon for a long moment, then closed the case. Back at Ellison Tower, things moved fast. Victor had cleared out an entire floor, converted into a safe room. Space for Isla, a reading nook, a bed, security glass, surveillance only on Victor's command. No staff access! But Naomi's focus was elsewhere now. Nadia. And how to prove what she had done. Naomi paced outside Victor's private archive chamber. A vault-like room only accessed through biometric scan. Victor stood at the door, scanning his retina. "You're sure about this?" He asked her quietly. "I need proof," she said. "You said Isla downloaded something. There must be a trace." He opened the door. The archive was darker than she expected. Cool. Quiet. Every wall lined with servers, blinking with silent intelligence. Naomi walked in slowly, heart thudding. She reached the terminal, entered the file code Isla had described. Hirith 7C Beta. Access denied. She tried again with Victor's override key. File not found. Her mouth went dry. Victor stepped forward, frowning. It was here. Naomi turned toward him. Someone wiped it. No one can get in here without my... A light flickered behind them. The door had reopened. Someone was inside. Naomi spun around, just as a figure darted past the server rack. "Tate!" she called. No response. Victor stepped between Naomi and Isla's old tablet, which they had been using to cross-reference logs. He picked it up, glanced at the screen. A file was uploading, automatically, from the tower's internal network, to an outside address. Victor's eyes went wide. They're taking it. Now. Naomi lunged for the power source and yanked it. The lights blinked once and then died. Too late. The upload had gone through. Naomi's stomach sank. She has it. Victor's voice dropped to a whisper. Then we've just started a war. Naomi had dealt with difficult jobs before. Difficult bosses. Difficult men with clipboards and thinly veiled contempt. But this? This was war behind glass. And the enemy wore silk and smiled like she'd never lost a thing in her life. Nadia Ellison. She arrived at Ellison Tower the next morning with a perfect storm. Trailing her, lawyers. Assistants. Her private fixer named Dante. A man with dead eyes and a silver tie. Victor was already waiting in the upper conference suite. Arms crossed, jaw tight. Naomi stood at the window behind him, silent, watching every movement like it was a chessboard. Nadia breezed in like she owned the sky. "Brother," she said smoothly, kissing Victor on both cheeks. "You look tired." Victor said nothing. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Theatrics. Deflection. A predator's dance. "I heard there was a security breach," Nadia continued, taking her seat and crossing her legs with casual grace. "Poor optics. Shall I have PR spin it?" Victor's voice was cold. "You were on the network last night." Nadia raised one brow. "I'm on it every day." "At 3:27 a.m.? She laughed lightly. "Victor, please. If I was going to steal from you, I wouldn't do it myself." "That's what interns are for." Naomi stepped forward. "Cute. But the file wasn't just stolen. It was rerouted through a dead server that only 2 people in this building had access to. And I suppose I'm one of them?" Nadia said, still smiling. Naomi smiled back, just as sharp. "No, you're the only one." For a second, just a flicker, the smile dropped. Victor seized it. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were surveillance timestamps, access logs, terminal signatures painstakingly, gathered by Naomi and the IT forensics team in less than 12 hours. "It's all there," Victor said. Nadia didn't look. She didn't need to, because now her smile was gone completely. "So this is how it ends," she said quietly. Victor's voice didn't rise. "That depends entirely on you." But Nadia only laughed, a soft, bitter sound. "You're the one who built a machine that could manipulate emotions." "All I did was give it permission to feel." She stood, brushing invisible dust off her sleeve. "And now you're pretending you didn't want that." Naomi moved in front of the door, blocking her path. "Where's the file, Nadia?" Nadia's eyes turned to ice. "You should have stayed in your cafe, Miss Harris." Naomi didn't flinch. "I thought so too," she said, "until your niece ended. Up in my booth. Cold, scared, and smarter than either of you gave her credit for. That cut deeper than expected." Nadia's posture shifted. "She doesn't know what she has," she said. "But if that data gets released, it won't just burn me. It'll burn the whole damn company. Him too." Naomi said nothing. "Because that was the real game. Mutually assured destruction." Victor was silent. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number. After a beat, release the redacted logs. Full statement. Public channel. Nadia's head snapped toward him. Are you insane? Victor didn't look at her. The truth won't be buried anymore. Naomi stepped aside. You should go. Nadia stood there for a moment longer, stripped of control, of the illusion she'd built. Then she turned and walked out, the sound of her heels echoing like gunfire down the corridor. Later that evening, Naomi stood beside Isla on the rooftop of the tower, watching the city breathe beneath them. The press had already picked up the story. Redacted files, algorithm abuse, Victor's official confession. He had taken the hit to protect Isla, to protect Naomi. Was it my fault? Isla asked softly. Naomi shook her head. No, baby. You saved us. You saw what grown-ups refuse to see. Isla looked up. Even if I didn't mean to. Naomi smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Sometimes truth only needs to be seen, not understood. Below them, a storm rolled in again, soft. Distant thunder rumbling through the skyline. But for once, Naomi wasn't afraid of the rain. 3 weeks later, the fallout was still unfolding. Headlines across every major outlet pulsed with phrases like, Media Empire exposed for emotion manipulation tech. Victor Ellison accepts responsibility in High-Wraith scandal. Ellison's niece at center of leak. No charges filed. Nadia had vanished. Officially, she was on sabbatical. Unofficially, Victor's quiet connections ensured she could never work again in tech, media, or government. Her empire had collapsed, not with noise, but with silence. Victor remained CEO. But the man who now sat behind the glass desk on the 58th floor was not the same one who once saw kindness as a liability. He called Naomi into his office on a Monday morning, quiet, gray skies behind him. You're leaving, he said without looking up. Naomi stepped in. I am, he nodded. You could stay. There's still work to be done. There always is, she replied. But not mine. Victor finally looked up. Why? Naomi took a deep breath. Because this place never needed someone to fix it. It needed someone to expose it. That job's done. He stood, came around the desk, and, uncharacteristically, extended his hand. Naomi took it. 2 months later, Naomi Harris stood at the ribbon cutting of the Isla Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to digital ethics and emotional literacy for underprivileged youth. It was housed in a renovated brick building on 33rd Street, a former tech warehouse, turned community hub. She stood at the podium, cameras flashing, reporters leaning forward. And beside her, beaming in a yellow dress, was Isla, a little girl who once sat alone in the rain, and now stood in the sun. I'm not here because I was the smartest, Naomi told the crowd. Or the richest. I'm here because someone gave me a choice. And I made the right one. Applause thundered. Victor stood off to the side, his gray suit replaced with a dark sweater, watching quietly. When Naomi stepped down, he nodded to her. Nothing needed to be said. And, as Naomi looked around at the children in the courtyard, learning to code, painting digital stories, dreaming without limits, she realized this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because kindness wasn't weakness. It was revolution.